to Cannabis Health Radio, where we share powerful, real-life stories from people around the world who are using cannabis as medicine. The goal of this podcast is to raise awareness of the healing potential of cannabis and is not intended as medical advice. And now, here's your host, Ian Jessup.
And welcome to another edition of the Cannabis Health Radio podcast. I'm Ian Jessup. Hey, before we begin, I've got some exciting news to share with you. My friend Al Morenton from MyFitLife, you know, the guy who literally saved his own site with Rick Simpson Oil, has just become our trusted wellness partner. And to celebrate this partnership, Al is offering something incredible just for listeners. When you use the code Cannabis Health, you'll get a 20% discount on all cannabis products and wellness supplements. But here's the special part. If you get the complete 60-gram Rick Simpson Protocol Kit during August, you'll receive an additional 10% off, which is 30% off your entire order. Plus, Al's throwing in his 21-day reset program absolutely free, which is a $249 value. This offer ends August 31st, so don't wait. Now, the website is myfitlife.net/cannabishealth. That's myfitlife.net/cannabishealth. Go there and schedule your consultation and mention Cannabis Health Radio to receive your special discount. Now, today's guest is a man who faced one of life's greatest challenges with courage, persistence, and an open mind. In November of 2023, Brenton Crowe was diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer, a diagnosis that shook the foundations of his world. Refusing to accept a one-size-fits-all approach, Brenton dove into a variety of alternative health protocols in hopes of beating cancer naturally. By April of 2024, he began high-dose cannabis suppositories, aiming to take control of his healing journey. However, after a CT scan in May revealed cancer progression, he made the difficult decision to proceed with conventional treatment. But he didn't stop there. Brenton continued using cannabis alongside chemo, and what he discovered was remarkable. Cannabis oil helped reduce his chemotherapy side effects by about 75%. Now he's cancer-free, and Brenton joins us from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, to share his story. Brenton, it's good of you to join us. I really appreciate it. What was it like for you emotionally when you got your diagnosis?
Emotionally, it wasn't the shock that I thought it would be. You always have this funny feeling deep inside of you. It's something that's not right. And just my personality traits. I'm not really much of a worrier. I'm not a stressor. I'm not overly, maybe empathetically retarded, maybe. But I was kind of like, okay, I have a goal. I have a mission. I have something I have to try and beat, and I'm looking forward to the journey. I was very motivated, and I was very maybe arrogant at the time that I was going to beat cancer the way that I wanted to, based on my research capabilities, even though it was a very short time frame. So I wasn't really too shook up about it, but it was also because I didn't understand the severity of it at the time as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, the interesting thing you mentioned is that you mentally knew or felt that you could beat this, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Now, after your diagnosis, what did you do in terms of dealing with your cancer?
As soon as I was diagnosed, you go into the research of the alternative community, and there's quite a few pitfalls I noticed here and there that I was like, okay, you've got to remember you're in a mental space of a cancer patient where, you know, your dopamine is very susceptible to being hijacked by people that are telling you the right or wrong things, and you need to do your best in a break speed time to figure out what is the efficacy of what they're projecting to me, and is it going to help me, and how does it help me? What is its mechanism? What is the pharmacology of that, and how can I synchronize it with other treatments to try and get the best effects of it? So Basically, I went down the path, like my pathway was to start, so this is December of 2023, I decided to do fasting. And, I kind of went down the rabbit hole of Thomas Seyfried with his theory on cancer as a metabolic disease. It made sense to me, and there was enough there to convince me from his lectures and his various podcasts that there might be something to it, and it made sense. So the first thing I did was I did a 17-day fast, and this meant absolutely no food. I was drinking distilled water, and I would take an electrolyte as well. Fasting
How did you feel during that period?
So for the first 3 days, when your body kicks into ketosis, it flips its fuel. So it stops using glucose as much, and then it starts producing ketones, and you live off those ketones. It is the most amazing feeling you've ever felt after the 3 days. The third and fourth day, depending on your metabolic flexibility, you're a bit down, depressed, and you want to eat something. But after that, once you break through that, the ketones are like unlocking a drug in your system you didn't know you had. My senses were heightened. I could see things before they happened. I could hear better. I could smell things more. I'd had absolutely no inflammation. I had so much energy from day 5 onwards that I was just bouncing around the room, and I was like, wow, this is an untapped thing. Like, I feel so good. I do not feel like a cancer patient at all. It was amazing.
Well, that's interesting. And you did the 17-day fast, and you broke the fast how?
So I broke the fast. I listened to my body. I was like, I was craving bacon, avocado, and eggs for some reason. My body wanted some fat. So
very much
I broke
like
it
the
with
carnivore diet, right?
Pretty much. I broke the fast with that. Then I saw the benefit of lowering glucose in my diet, and just enjoying the feeling that I had there. So I went into a restricted, or a glucose restricted diet. Now, it didn't mean that I didn't have any glucose whatsoever. I just avoided the absolute maximum. I actually got that keto mojo, and I was measuring my blood ketones and glucose daily to try and maintain what was allegedly a therapeutic form of ketosis for cancer, based on the very few studies there are out on there on it. But I was like, well, that's something I can do for free. I just need a bit of self-discipline, which I have. So yeah, I did that, and I was calorie counting, and God, I was losing weight. Geez, Ian, I used to be 235 pounds before I started cancer. I'm 6 foot. I was very well overweight, to the absolute. So after that fast, and I must admit, I was doing fasting 2 to 3 days a week from September of 2023, because I was having issues from the cancer that I didn't know were issues from the cancer, but it was digestive issues. And no pain, no nothing like that. It was just simply, what I was seeing in the toilet bowl, basically. I was like, oh God, something's not right. So I was familiar with fasting, but not a 17-day. I was trying for 21 days, but at the 17th day, my body, and it wasn't like I broke down or whatever. It just felt odd to keep doing it. I was actually, before I was actually enjoying it, and it just felt like I don't have to eat. This is amazing. But then I got to the 17th day, and I was like, yep, we've used up all the stores. You need to refill us. So
how much weight did you lose?
Over my cancer journey, so from February 2023, 235 pounds, and for the Australians or anyone else, that's 110 kilos. To just before I went and did chemo, and I had the ostomy installed, so I was 160 pounds at my lightest. So I lost 70 pounds overall. I've luckily gained that back now. I'm back up to 190. I lie, 200. Had a good weekend.
Now, during this process, were you doing research on other alternative methods in order to deal with your rectal cancer?
Yes, I very much subscribe to Jane McClellan's How to Starve Cancer. And, you know, that wasn't through diet. She was actually looking at how to block receptors on the cancer cells to prevent its typical uptake of its metabolic uptake. And there is surprisingly some pretty good studies out there for off-label drug use to work adjunctively with cancer. The standard of care treatment. So in my head, like, I didn't want to. I forego the natural or the standard of care purposely because I wanted 5 months to see what I could do and to see if there was an improvement. So as of December 2023 to May of 2024 was my window, and I was at the sauna every day. I was at the gym every day. I was eating. I was counting calories. My diet was pristine. I flipped from keto to vegan. I didn't go to carnivore because, as I'll get into in a second, my cancer really likes lipid uptake, so fats. It loves saturated fats. So the hard part was like, well, how do I know what to target? How do I figure that out? And what Jane McClellan sort of pointed to is you have to figure out what genotype your cancer is. And the hard part about that is there's thousands of variations of what you could have. Like, we could have the same cancer, rectal cancer, stage 3 rectal cancer, but my mutations might be different to yours. And that will instruct certain proteins and cells to take on more glucose compared to mine, which it takes on more lipids. So it's a real hit and miss, and this is what was hard with cancer. So I knew that I had to find a nurse practitioner or a prescribing doctor, I should say, to get those drugs for me. And then I went to a naturopath to consult with them to see what they had on offer. I knew that they had hyperbaric oxygen, and they had intravenous vitamin C. They had intravenous artesunate. They had, and then I had all the off-label drugs as well. I tried to achieve a process called ferroptosis, which is weaponizing the iron in your blood to kind of sneak reactive oxygen species or oxygenated species into the cell. And so what you do is you impregnate the ferritin, you weaponize the ferritin in your blood, and when the cancer takes it in, it sends all this oxygen into the cancer, and typically cancer can't survive well in a high oxygen environment, typically, and it depends what mutations you have, because some of them can. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to achieve that. So the drugs I managed to get was what is actually found to be very useful alongside chemotherapy and the rest, was metformin. I was using atorvastatin, which is a statin. I was using hydroxychloroquine. I was using an NSAID, Aleve, which is an NSAID is a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. I was using doxycycline. Through the naturopath, I was using mistletoe injections. I was on mebendazole, which I managed to get a prescription for. Very hard to get in Canada. They don't like holding that around because we don't have parasite issues. I was also using methylene blue. And at this point, I wasn't using cannabis. I didn't have it yet, and I was trying to find a supplier at the time. Mm-hmm. But what I did is I started pairing those. I started to understand the mechanism of what these treatments actually did. So, metformin targeted the glucose uptake into the cell. The IV vitamin C can actually mimic glucose in your blood. And when it takes it into the cancer cell, it can have a negative effect on the cancer cell. It varies depending on the person and if they have any comorbidities or whatnot, and depending on the mutations and depending on about 1,000 different things. But I did the research and I learned that my cancer actually liked the lipid uptake. So that's what the atorvastatin took care of. Well, I tried to take care of it anyway, the best I could. Glycolysis. My cancer upregulates glycolysis. There's also glutamine metabolism. Now, the hard thing about glutamine is your body actually creates it. There is no getting rid of it. You cannot suppress your body. You cannot suppress the cancer of the uptake of glutamine. You never will. And if you do, you die, basically, because you need it for everything. There's also an amino acid metabolism involving asparagine synthesis. So especially with KRAS oncogene mutations, which is what typically people have on the left side, colon and the rectum. I knew that it needed these things to grow. Also autophagy, and that's why I took hydroxychloroquine, because that actually, they found that it retarded its use of that mechanism. And autophagy is basically the cancer cell instructs cells around it to destroy themselves so that it can eat the parts out of it to feed itself. Right. And that's what can lead to cachexia, the wasting away of the body.
So when you were taking all this, what led you toward cannabis suppositories?
So I was never a cannabis user, a heavy cannabis user. I didn't even like it at all, to be honest. I didn't like the feeling that came from it. I didn't like the high, and I did try it. I tried a grain of rice. Like I made my own stuff at the first batch anyway. I made it the Rick Simpson way, and I tried probably half a grain of rice, maybe a grain of rice, and I went to Mars. I was absolutely out of it. I couldn't move from bed. It was. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to do a gram if I can barely do 100 milligrams. So, I was okay with the suppositories, because I learned with the suppositories is it actually becomes systemic through. Originally I thought it was the portal vein. So the portal vein is kind of like, for lack of a better term, is the carotid artery of your midsection around the hips. It typically feeds the liver and a bunch of insides in there. So I was like, well, how can I get it systemic through that way? Because what I want to do is trying to avoid the enzymatic or having it broke down by enzymes in your digestive tract, which releases the THC effect, or the psychotropic effect. And I was like, oh, well, if I stick it up the other end, then it'll actually get absorbed into the blood vessels at the anal verge, and it will go through the iliac vein, which will get on the on the highway to the portal vein, which will actually send it systemically throughout my body without having to ingest it. So that's how I could get that high dose. And I was doing probably 1.5 grams a day. And I did that consistently for, I'm going to say I did it almost continuously, because I found a supplier. And lots of people, they ask me, it's like, oh, so you're taking cannabis, so the high helps you get better from cancer? I said, no, it's, and then I'd explain it the way I have just done then, and the eyes glaze over, and they're looking at it as it's some kind of excuse to get high. But I was like, I'm not getting high. And
a lot of the times you mention suppositories to people, and they just say, oh my God, I can't do that.
Yeah, I have a saying for that, Ian. I have a saying for that. Yeah. If cannabis oil is not your favourite dish, feed it to the chocolate starfish.
So you were taking cannabis oil for several months, and then you went for a CT scan. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my original diagnosis was, so the way that they diagnose is a TNM diagnosis. So T stands for tumour, N stands for nodal metastasis, and M stands for metastasis to other organs and whatnot. So my original, December, when I had the MRI, December 2023, I was classed as a 3B, and my T was a 3, my N was a 0, my M was a 0. So when the CT scan happened, they noticed that it had grown. It had gotten bigger. They noticed that it lit up 3 lymph nodes. I think it was heading upwards. And they couldn't confirm from the CT, but they thought that I had something called EMVI, which is extramural muscular invasion. Anyone listening to this, please don't quote me. It's been such a long time. I've probably forgotten half of these words. So what that meant is the cancer was hunting for a vein. I feel that was testimony that either one, it was just progressing like it normally does, and all of the stuff I was doing was absolutely not affecting it whatsoever, or 2, I had managed to stop the spread or the metastasis, or slowed the metastasis from what I was doing, and it started to starve that much that it started going for a vein to get the nutrients it wanted that I was depriving it of. That's my theory. I don't know exactly for sure. But basically I got the call, that my 6 months was up, and when it got worse, I said to myself, okay, you're in a fight where you don't have the tools or the knowledge to beat this. You're a late stage cancer. You need to go and figure out how you're going to get through chemo, because that's your next step. And my treatment protocol for it's based on the Protégé 23 study, which was done in France. They actually followed cancer patients with my cancer for, I think it was 10 years. Don't quote me on that, but and they followed them for 10 years, and they found a 75% success rate with this form of treatment for non-recurrence after 5 years. So, some people had a recurrence after 5 years, some people didn't. But what I liked about that study is the median age group was like 58, 65, in between there. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm a bit younger. I haven't got any comorbidities. I'm healthy as all hell. I've researched into adjunctive treatments that can help, supplements, pills, therapies, etc. I'm going to try and synergize all of that together to see if I can increase the efficacy of the chemo based on the medical literature that's showing just a little sign of hope. It didn't have to be much. I was like, who cares? Throw the kitchen sink at this. You have a KRAS mutation. That is a nasty thing. That's actually in pancreatic cancers pretty commonly. Don't mess with it anymore.
So when you started chemo, what was that like for you?
So I went through the FOLFIRINOX protocol. The FOLFIRINOX protocol is sometimes what they use in pancreatic cancer patients, depending on their mutation stage, etc. Because they class rectal cancer as, quite deadly and high chance of recurrence. So the new protocol meant that I do 6 rounds of FOLFIRINOX, and that would be every 2 weeks. And I would be attached to chemo those 6 times. And so 1 round of chemo would be 46 hours attached to chemo. So I would go to the clinic, I would do 2 to 3 hours of intravenous chemotherapy, and that was irinotecan, oxaliplatin, leucovorin, and then the 5-FU would get attached to me at the end. Now, irinotecan, the oncologist described to me, he goes, it actually unwinds DNA. And on my first round of chemo, they had to give me, and it's very common for them, to give me a shot of atropine, because I was sweating profusely, and that's the chemo kicking the water out of your cells during that time. So they gave me that shot, and I was good to go. I was on cannabis oil during the chemo, because I remember Corey saying, the chemo patients, the cancer patients go through chemo, fly through chemo with the cannabis oil, and I was like, what have I got to lose? I might as well try it. I did multiple other supplements and things where I was learning how to try and boost the efficacy of the chemo, but also protect my healthy cells the best that I could. The chemo experience was it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Like, and maybe it was because of the state that I was in, the physical state that I was in, and maybe it was the Rick Simpson oil, and maybe it was my mindset. I don't know, but I wasn't afraid of it because I just had all this training on being, jabbed and getting the intravenous stuff put through me. That I was kind of used to being jabbed and having something put in me. Before my first round, I had to get my port installed. So you're basically awake on the table. They shield your face and they cut into your collarbone and they install this catheter into a vein in the middle of your chest. You don't feel anything. It wasn't. I didn't feel any pain or any discomfort or anything. So if anyone's worried about that, it's really nothing. Just don't think about it if you're a bit squeamish. But I'm not really that squeamish, so I was just like, yep, do what you want.
When you sent me information about your condition, you said that the cannabis oil helped you get through chemo without side effects by about 75%. So, in other words, the cannabis oil helped you, and I think over the years we've done this program, Corey and I, before her passing earlier this year, people we've interviewed who have done exactly what you did have exactly the same response. Chemo wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be because of the cannabis oil.
That's correct.
And I think that's fantastic. Now, you underwent chemo, you were taking your cannabis oil, you didn't experience some of the symptoms physically and emotionally, I guess, that a lot of other people experience. When did you stop that, and when did you get your diagnosis that you were cancer-free?
So it was... I probably didn't disclose the extra treatment that I had to go through because my protocol was 6 rounds of FOLFIRINOX chemotherapy, then 25 rounds of VMAT radiation aimed at the pelvis, and then then surgery to remove the cancer, then another 6 rounds of FOLFOX chemotherapy, which is a standard digestional tract chemotherapy. So through the first 6 rounds of chemo in June of 24, I was on cannabis oil the whole time and so not knowing what it was like to not be on it. So the typical symptoms you get from chemo is vomiting, diarrhea, and going back in my story a bit, because my bowel closed, or my rectum closed 95 to 99% because I took so long to take treatment. They installed an emergency colostomy bag back in June of 2024. So, the diarrhea and all that wasn't a problem for me because I had the ostomy bag. I did not throw up once. You feel kind of nauseous, but it's not nausea. You're drugged up for the nausea. You're on metoclopramide and on Dancitron, which is pretty common anti-nausea drug. And they kind of, the only symptoms I experienced was a cold touch, so reaching into the freezer because of the oxaliplatin. It's a platinum-based chemo. The cold touch, so you get the pins and needles in your hand. It's not very painful. It's just like, oh, geez, that's weird. Okay, don't touch cold things. Okay. And just lethargic. Like, I didn't really do much when I was attached to the chemo, or a few days after I wasn't. It was like the chemo, it feels like it pulls you into about 1,000 pieces and then you've got to rebuild yourself. But it took about 2 days after disconnection that I was back to normal, and I was going to work during chemo. Obviously not while I was attached to the chemo. But, I felt fine. I didn't really have any issues. So to answer your question, so after the radiation, after the surgery, and then into the FOLFOX chemo, I decided to experiment because that's what I've been this whole time. And I did my first round of FOLFOX with absolutely no cannabis oil in my system. And I was sick. I've never been that sick in my life, and I felt the full brunt of what chemo was all about when I when I did that. And then I went, right, never again. And I brewed up some more cannabis oil suppositories in that time. I took it. With a slight caveat there, I said to them I was having such a hard time after the first round of chemo that they said, okay, we'll drop your dose to 80%. So, and they also dropped what's called a bolus injection. So a bolus injection is just a quick shot of the chemo to get you started, sort of thing. It's like a syringe, and then they attach the bottle to you, which is a pressurized bottle, which you wear with like a little fanny pack or whatever, and you just walk around. You go to bed with it. You're attached to it for 46 hours from there. So yeah, when I was on the cannabis oil, I was almost normal. I could sleep well, although once again I didn't feel the effects of the cannabis oil. I just felt normalized. It just felt so much better going through it than without it.
Was your medical team aware that you were taking cannabis?
Yes, they were aware that I was taking all of the drugs I was taking. They were aware that I was taking cannabis oil, and they actually agreed with the cannabis oil. They said, you do whatever you need, but they wouldn't recommend it. They wouldn't, they kind of, I'm sure they've come across a lot of cancer patients this day and age where they're using cannabis, and there is actually studies that are showing that 10 milligrams THC, so a THC gummy, taking that during chemotherapy does offset the side effects of chemo, at least with nausea. And I tried that a few times, and it works. And you get a nice little nap as well. At least that was my experience. So yeah, I think they're warming up to it a bit more now, but it's, oncologists are what is the best evidence given. Everything else doesn't matter. And that is based on whatever's handed down to them from the tumor board. So for those out there that haven't been through cancer, your case, at least in Alberta, Canada, and I'm sure in most places of the world because I've heard it before, your case goes before a panel of the top oncologists, radiologists, radiation oncologists, and surgeons, etc. And they decide what your treatment's going to be based on your diagnosis. So if something about cannabis that's got some phase 3 clinical trials that has shown efficacy and it's met the standard or the criteria of what they want, they don't pass it down to the oncologist. The oncologist is just the foot soldier for whatever the tumor board dictates, basically.
Yeah. So when you got your CT scan that showed you were cancer-free, tell us about that.
Well, actually, I had something better than a CT scan. So so after I had the surgery, they didn't send me off for a scan. I had a scan after the radiation, and they found that the radiation, it didn't have a good response. It didn't really kill the tumor that well. So that was that was the MRI that I had in, I'm going to say November of 2024. And that was the final scan I had. So the way that they checked it now was, in their heads, it's been cut out. It's all gone. It's managed to stay localized for as long as it has. Chances are it's not going to get up and boogie and take off. So my post follow-up for it was the surgeon wanted to give me a full colonoscopy because I'd never had a full colonoscopy the whole time I had cancer, because they couldn't get past the tumor because it was at the top of the rectum. So they'd only have to go 6 centimeters up, and they're blocked. There's a big donut in there basically, because mine was a circumferential tumor. So I had a colonoscopy and I stayed awake, and I watched every single video of it while I was high on drugs. God, they give you some good drugs on the colonoscopy. You basically, I saw my whole colon. There was absolutely nothing in there. He found one polyp and he removed that. That got tested and proven it was not cancerous. But yeah, that in my opinion, that's the gold standard for the colorectal stuff is that. And yeah, I was pretty happy with that. But it was kind of like it didn't feel like you achieved much, like you've done all this work, you're doing this and that, and then at the end of the day, what cured me was the surgery, really, and maybe the potential for the chemo before, because my first rounds of chemo, I had a CT scan follow up from the first rounds of chemo, and the tumours shrunk by 5 millimeters, 6 millimeters, and 7 millimeters on another one on the nodes. So the chemo was working, and I would like to think alongside it, using the cannabis oil as well, adjunctively, probably gave it a little kickstart, because they've proven, while there's no major studies, because they're not going to study it long term to get that sort of thing that we wanted, but it prevents angiogenesis, which is the uptake of so it's where the cancer starts trying to get a blood supply and bring blood vessels to it. It increases apoptosis, so programmed cell death, which is what you want. And there's a few other things, but there's something there that really, really does help you, I think, and it might have something to do with activating the endocannabinoid system, and your body does something with that. I'm not sure, but it definitely blocks the CB1 receptors, the CB2. It slows down the ceramide production in the cancer. It modulates the tumor microenvironment. It's got better immune surveillance enhancement with high THC. It increases oxidative stress, proliferation inhibition. So it's doing a lot, and especially proliferation inhibition specifically for RAS oncogene, or RAS MAPK and PI3K-AKT, which is one of the main cellular processes that the RAS oncogene optimizes, and THC does decrease the cancer cell proliferation in that, because it blocks the cell cycle progression by down-regulating the survival pathways. So I think there's something there for cannabis, and I really wish a little bit more came out about it. But at the end of the day, you got to advocate for yourself and give it your best go, and throw the kitchen sink at it. There is no such thing as, if I drink this tea, I'm going to get better. If I take this cannabis oil, I'm going to get better. If you've got a late stage cancer, you throw the kitchen sink at it. There is no such thing as doing a half-assed with something that affects your life.
Yeah. How has your cannabis journey, your cancer journey, how has it changed your perspective on life?
I'm a master procrastinator, probably like quite a few people. I've got so many inventions in my head. I'm an innovator, and I like to build things. I'm a millwright by trade. I'm currently doing project management at the moment for my company, and I learned a lot about task management and understanding finances, procurement, things like this. So, before I went on my cancer journey, I was trying to build a custom barbecue, because I get right into smoking meat and doing barbecue, and it had to go on hold because I was full-time becoming an oncologist with a participation award. So I did that, and it was funny. I had a lot of clarity. I was like, wow, the first design I had was pretty crap, and I realized I can do it now. I can build it better with the perspective I have now, and it's because you kind of have a little bit more of a value for what you have before you had cancer, and you're like, go build it. You don't know when it's going to come tapping on your shoulder again, because unfortunately I have a high chance of recurrence, so I have a high chance of it coming back. But I'm hoping I'm in that 75% of no recurrence. But yeah, I'm under surveillance for the next 5 years now, so I'm looking forward to a trip home to see my family. I haven't seen them in 6 years, and I've got nieces and nephews I haven't met yet. I lie. I saw my parents. They came and visited me on my cancer journey in 2024. But yeah, I just want to go and see them, and I suppose you realise your little brush with death, and you value things a little bit more, feel a bit more motivated.
Yeah, interesting. Brenton, thanks for doing this. We'll keep in touch with you, and hopefully in 5 years we'll do another interview, and you'll be one of the successes. Fantastic.
Absolutely, and thanks for all the work you do, buddy. Your podcast definitely got me through, helped me get through cancer, and it was really nice listening to yourself and Corey. God rest her soul, and thanks for all you do, and please keep doing it. Will
do. Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for tuning in. You can find more information and check out all our past episodes at cannabishealthradio.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and follow us on social media and our Rumble channel. This podcast is listener supported, so if you've found it helpful, please consider making a donation, big or small, right on our site. And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Leaving a quick review also helps others discover us. We really appreciate you being here. Thanks again.